Okay, I think we're going to get started. I tried to wait another minute, but it took forever. So, okay, so hi everyone and welcome. I'm so glad you could join us for this launch of my book, How to Raise a Rhino, that Save the Rhino International is hosting today. I can't thank them enough for this idea and for making it happen. I love talking about Anna Merz, and so I'm thrilled to be here. In addition to me today, we're going to hear from several other panelists, people who either have experience in rhino conservation or knew Anna Merz, and I will, in a minute, I will introduce each of them. But first, I wanted to do a little bit of housekeeping. You probably already saw in the chat that you're all muted, which is just to cut down on background noise. But we really want to hear your questions and comments. And the way it's going to work is each of the panelists will make a short presentation. And at the end of that, we will have a question and comment session. You can do one of two things. You can write your question in the Q&A icon, click on the Q&A icon at the bottom of your window and type your question or comment while we're all talking. Or you can wait until we finish presenting and then click the raise hand icon, and somebody, hopefully not me, will call on you, and then you can unmute yourself, ask your question, and then remute yourself. So we really are looking forward to plenty of questions and comments if you have any. Okay, so I want to now introduce you to, oh, and then one last thing. If you do end up wanting to buy the book, Vasily will put a link to Amazon at the end of the event, and you can buy the book that way. I'm also putting in a little plug for bookshop.org, which is an organization that gives a little bit of their proceeds to help support independent bookstores. It turns out not just in the US, which is what I thought, but everywhere. So if that appeals to you, you can also do that. Okay, so now without further ado, I am going to introduce our panelists, some who are more visible than others. Our mystery guest today is Patty Pearthree, who you can't in fact see, but is a very, very good friend of Anna Merz's, traveled with her, led a huge fundraising effort through American Association of Zookeepers. The program was called Bowling for Rhinos. They raised hundreds of thousands or more dollars for both Lewa Downs and other rhino conservation efforts, and she is herself a conservationist. After that, we have Marion Mauran, who is a documentary filmmaker, and she is currently making a documentary about Anna Merz and Lewa Downs. And then we have Matthew Mutinda, who is a veterinarian at Lewa Downs, and I can't wait to hear about sort of rhinos and every other thing going on there. And then last but not least, we have Cathy Dean, who is the CEO of Rhino International, and she will talk to us about the importance of private rhino conservation.
Sorry, everybody. Deb warned us that she might cut out. She's back. Bear with us.
Okay, where did you lose me?
You had just finished wrapping up introducing us all. So back to you, Deb.
Okay. So I also want to give a shout out to a couple people in the audience. Naomi Campbell, who is Anna Merz's goddaughter, and not a supermodel, but a hydration nurse, is here. Fuzz Dyer, I believe, is here, who was really Anna's, co-conspirator, right-hand man, really essential to getting the sanctuary up and running. They were very close. I'm thrilled that he's here as well. And I believe Case Rookmacher is here, who runs an organization called Rhino Resource Center, which is an online database. And you'll hear later how all these people helped me in my project. Okay, so I think that's all the introduction that we need. And now, because I guess I'm going to start. So I'll be the first presenter. Okay, so I thought I would begin first by telling you all a little bit about Anna Merz, because although I feel like I know her very well now, she's not a household name. Anna grew up in London and Cornwall during World War II. She had several sort of life-threatening experiences in those days. And she sort of determined she would live a life of adventure rather than a sort of a standard, stable, middle-class life, which is what her parents wanted for her. She ended up basically living her whole adult life in Ghana, where she spent a lot of time, hiking the countryside. Okay, that's Naomi Campbell. If we could go back to the other picture, that would be great. Anyway, she hiked the countryside. She loved Ghana. There were many places where she went into the wilderness and observed wild animals. And she became basically an honorary game warden there, and helped the government identify places that might become national parks. And along the way, she gained a reputation of being very good at taking care of sick and injured animals, both wild and domestic. So she had a lot of experience with that. In the early 1980s, she and her second husband, Carl, decided to retire to Kenya. And they were just expecting, the usual retirement, rest and relaxation. But instead, what happened was that Anna started to see that even in Kenya, like in Ghana, many animals were being exploited for food, for hide, for horns, for pets. And she just felt like she could not stand by and watch this happen in another place. And so she got this idea that she would create a sanctuary. Specifically for Black rhinos, but of course other animals are included in that. But of course, she had the money to do this, but as a non-Kenyan, she could only own 5 acres of land, which, as she said, could barely raise a porcupine, much less a crash of rhinos. So she went looking for landowners who might be willing to partner with her to do this sanctuary idea. But every single person she approached rolled their eyes and basically told her she was nuts and to go away. And then finally, she'd basically given up, and she and Carl went on a holiday to, I think it was called Wildlife Trails. I meant to check, but anyway, this safari camp that David and Delia Craig, together with their son Ian, ran in sort of the northwestern part of Kenya. And she had given up so much, she wasn't even going to talk to them about her idea. But finally, she thought, well, what has she got to lose? So she talks to them, and to her shock and surprise, they're immediately interested. So she now has land. They set aside 5,000 acres in the beginning for her experiment. She had the money. They had a name. It was called something different, but eventually came to be known as Lewa Downs. And then they needed some rhinos, which it turned out was much harder to find than even they'd feared. Rhinos had been just horribly poached. I think probably Cathy Dean and others can speak to that more than I can. But the bottom line is that she and her team started to collect rhinos, both from the wild and also from other parks where they were either overpopulated or otherwise needing a change of venue. And the book goes into more detail. I want to just sort of skim along here. Anyway, then in 1985, a life-changing experience comes along when one of the first rhinos gave birth, abandoned her calf. There had been a drought. The theory was perhaps she knew she couldn't nurse the baby, but Anna and Fuzz, and I think Ian Craig was there. They all, watched this infant rhino cry and cry for milk for a couple days, and they just couldn't bear it dying. So they all agreed that Anna should become a Kifaru Mama, which is Swahili for Rhino Mama, and take this little rhino, who she named Samia, with her to her house and try and keep it alive. The book goes into detail about all the mishaps and trials and tribulations of trying to keep Samia alive, but it was very stressful and tense, and it felt like the it was a really important thing because this was sort of their first rhino baby, and every rhino was precious, and this sort of was the culmination of Anna's dream to have these rhinos be safe and protected and be able to have babies. So Anna became quite absorbed in raising Samia. She tried to teach her how to be a rhino by walking with her every day in the sanctuary, and by showing her what she might eat and scuffing rhino poop when she saw it, and that kind of thing. And I think one of the sort of the coolest images in my mind is this idea that every day Anna would take a walk with Samia and her dogs, and they would sort of go single file in this amazing parade of sort of human rhino dog. And over time, Anna introduced Samia to other animals on the sanctuary, and again, you can read some of the details of some of their sort of funnier escapades in the book. Anyway, I guess the other thing is this, that while Anna was doing this, the sanctuary continued to grow and mostly prosper. And today now, not only is Lewa Downs still active, but it's sort of been the grain that started this growth of something called Northern Rangelands Trust, which is now a network of sanctuaries throughout sort of the northern and western parts of Kenya. And this all grew out of Anna's vision to create a safe place for Black rhinos to survive and to procreate. It's also an amazing thing when you think that rhinos take, I think they're pregnant for like a year, and it takes at least 3 years for a rhino to be raised by its mother, and oftentimes they stay around even longer than that. So you had to have the patience of Job to undertake this. Okay, so that's Anna's life in as much of a nutshell as I could do. I want to just talk briefly about how I came to learn about Anna. So I'm hoping you can all see this picture of Anna with Samia and a dog in the foreground. This is the first thing I knew about Anna. I was reading the New York Times obituaries in 2013, and I saw this picture, and I dare anyone who sees this picture in a newspaper to not want to read the story about this remarkable woman and what the heck the rhino was doing there. So I saved the clipping, and after a year or so, I decided this was going to be my next project. I realize now I forgot to just mention I'm a middle grade author. I love to write nonfiction. I like writing about ordinary people doing extraordinary things, and Anna certainly fit that pattern or model. So I saw this obituary event a little more, so I dug around on the internet, and of course, since she had died, there were many obituaries out there, and other information. And along the way, I managed to make contact with her goddaughter, Naomi Campbell, who lives in Cornwall. And I just want to take a minute now to say that I think that one of the most amazing things for me about this project is how many people were excited and anxious and willing to share their memories, their photographs, their videotapes, everything that they could think of, then share other people's names that might want to talk to me. I think it's a real measure of how much Anna was admired and beloved by the people that she worked with. And it sure made my project 10 times more fun than it would have been otherwise. Anyway, so I decided I would travel with my family to Cornwall to visit Naomi and learn from her about her godmother. And in the process, Naomi shared with me some photographs. The next photo will show you a picture of Naomi with Anna when she was visiting Anna at Lewa Downs. The next photo will show you the inside of Anna's house, which, didn't make it into the book or anything, but it kind of helps you imagine what her life was like. And every once in a while, Samia would sneak into her house. And so now you can imagine what that was like. And then another picture Naomi took just of Samia. Okay, so So anyway, Naomi shared with me many, many things, including this necklace, which you probably can't see, but was Anna's, and it has a rhino charm on it. I met up with Kees Rookmacher, the head of Rhino Resource Center, and he shared with me some scans of all of Anna's journals, which she had left for him. This book that Anna wrote, Rhino at the Brink of Extinction, was very helpful to me. I interviewed many other people. Then in 2017, I had an opportunity to take go on a safari with the American Association of Zookeepers, one of their groups. And you can imagine, I learned much, much more from that. I got to meet Ian Craig. This is my safari group. I didn't think I really needed to go on safari, but I'd already finished the manuscript, but it created a more nuanced layer and sort of an almost I can't really use it. I don't have words for how much it affected my story in terms of sort of the feel of the environment. And then I came home from the safari and I sort of reworked the manuscript, and here it is today. How to Raise a Rhino. I want to give a quick shout out to Bedazzled Ink, which is a small publisher in California who saw my proposal and thought that it was worth publishing. I want to give a plug also to middle grade. This book is something that anyone from the age of about 8 to 108 can enjoy. So it's marketed as for kids, but anybody will love it. And my last picture, that's fine, you can go to the last one. That I only just put there. One of my safari pals took it. That's a guide we had named Francis. And I just love the beadwork and the bright colors against his beautiful dark skin. And so that seemed like a good sort of final photograph to share with you all. So if, I sort of rushed through that, but we're gonna now turn to Patty, whose video I guess isn't working, but she's gonna read a little bit from her memorial that she wrote when Anna died. Patty, take it away.
Hi, I'm here. Anybody hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, all right. So I first met Anna Merz in 1991 at her home on Lewa in Kenya. My husband Herbie and I had the honor of staying with her when I was the first ever Bowling for Rhino trip winner. I will never forget being with Anna when I met her beloved Samia for the first time. Samia was the full-grown orphaned rhino that she had hand-raised from a 3-day-old calf and had successfully reintroduced back into the wild. Being a house guest of Anna's, each morning we would have the joy of Samia coming back to the house, making her little pig squealing sounds to say hello to Anna. I would pat her or she would pat her and talk to her for a few minutes, and then Samia would head off to be a wild rhino. On occasion, Samia would come running up to the Jeep when we were out on safari, and Anna would say hello and say, "Race you back to the house, Samia," and off they would go, with Samia always beating the Jeep. Just being a witness to that amazing bond between human and animal was a treasure I will hold dear always. A few years later, my husband and I had the extraordinary opportunity to stay with Anna again. This time, our wake-up call each morning was the sounds of not only Samia coming to greet Anna, but also the tiny sounds of her calf, Samuel. Both still came to greet Anna each and every morning. Anna had successfully hand-raised and reintroduced Samia to the wild. She had gained so much knowledge about rhinos from 10 years of being with Samia. She inspired me to love rhinos and to spend the rest of my life trying to help save them from extinction. And she inspired so many other people to do the same. Anna had one of the most childlike fascinations with animals and wildlife I had ever seen. On a trip with her in the tropical rainforests of Java, Indonesia, she squealed much like one of her rhinos at the sight of a mud puppy, a creature she had never seen or heard about. Since I had learned about them in school, I was able to fascinate her with everything I knew. The more she learned, the more delighted she became. Another of my fondest memories is from a trip with Anna to SeaWorld during the San Diego Zookeeper Conference in 1993. We were some of the last to arrive at the Orca Whale Show Stadium. The rest of the delegates had already been seated, ready for the show to start, when Anna and I rounded the wall where Anna caught her first glimpse of an orca who swam up to the glass as if to greet her. Anna stopped in her tracks and stood there with her mouth wide open, hands to her cheeks, and gasped and remained frozen for about 5 minutes. She was so in awe of their size and beauty that she just could not comprehend what she was seeing. I finally had to nudge her along her way to get her to her seat. She said she would always treasure that moment, and so will I. And boy, did she ever have a sense of humor. One of my fondest memories is from my trip with Anna to the Javan Rhino Colloquium in 1997 in Bogor, Indonesia. Anna and I were roommates, and she had arrived a few days before me. She had a good chuckle when I unknowingly had slept through the mosque music blasting from the 10-foot by 10-foot speakers just feet from our window at 4 a.m. after I had been traveling for 36 hours. But she laughed hysterically the next morning when she saw my reaction of total shock when I woke up to our beds actually dancing around the room from the noise. And why could she not have warned me ahead of time? But then I remembered that she thoroughly enjoyed a good laugh. So I forgave her for not warning me. I loved hearing Anna's stories of adventure, usually over some drinks of whiskey or wine, how she would have to wield out her pistol and shoot at a wild boar as it had one of her beloved dogs by the throat in a near-death grip. Or at 80 years old, her ziplining through the treetops for the first time in her life. Or at age 75, finding out that underwear came in various colors and styles other than white granny undies. So I have a whole stack of letters that I collected from Anna, having sent them to me over the years. But I have one in particular that's my very favorite one. And it's my favorite because it actually came to me about a month after she passed away. And it had been written about a year and a half earlier. So I feel like it came to me from heaven. So Anna would give letters that she had written to visitors that came to Lewa, and then they would bring them home and post them in the States for to save a few pennies here and there, and also to ensure that they didn't get lost in the mail. So one of my friends, Nora, had gotten a letter from her to give to me or to send to me. And then when she got home, she forgot that it was in her suitcase. And it wasn't until a year and a half later when she got her suitcase out to go back out on safari that she found the letter again. So she posted it to me, of course, as soon as she could. And then I happened to get it a month after Anna passed away. So here's the letter for you, and you'll see why it was my favorite one. So it says, this is October 24th, 2011, and it's 2 years, or almost 2 years before she passed away. Dear Patty, hope all goes well with you all, and I send this to you via Nora, who came to dinner with 2 of her group to meet my bowlers, and I am seeing all of her group for a bush dinner tonight. Denise also came to dinner with 2 others to meet my 4, and I had a meal with her on my first night here, so that was good. My 4 were all lovely people, and they got on well together, and I hope very much they enjoyed themselves and that you will get positive feedback from them. Please let me know if their expectations were fulfilled or not. and I look forward to hosting Susan and her partner in October. Patty, I shall be 80 at the end of this year, and breaking my hip has not helped too much. And I feel that the bowlers deserve someone who is younger and more active than I am now. So sadly, and with great regret, because I have met so many wonderful people among them, some of whom have become lifelong friends. But I prepare to tell the Lewa board on Saturday that someone younger than me must take on the lovely job of hosting them from next March. Anything you would like me to do to help, please let me know. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for all you have done, are doing, and will do for Lewa, the rhinos, and for all the fun we have had together. Love to you all, Anna. So that letter meant more to me than words can ever say. So here is my conservation hero thanking me for helping her to save rhinos. So that's why I feel it was like a letter sent from heaven. And if anybody has questions, or if we're waiting for the end, not sure.
Okay, so, okay, oh. Okay, am I unmuted now? Can you all hear me? Okay, all right. Thank you so much, Patty. I loved hearing that. I didn't ever know about that letter. That is amazing. I'm envious of all the time you got to spend with that amazing woman, Anna. Documentary filmmaker, and who I think I will sort of just, do you want me just to ask you some questions about your work?
Sure.
Okay, so Marion is a documentary filmmaker, and all I really know about you is that you're working on a project with Anna Merz, but I would love it if you would tell us about sort of your career, how you got involved in filmmaking, and maybe give us some examples of other films you've made.
Sure. Hi, everyone. First of all, I just want to say congratulations to you, Deb. This is really exciting, and I can't wait to read the book. And nice to see some faces. Matthew, like, it's been 7 years, but good to see your face again. So let's see. The documentary that I'm making about Anna is called Mama Faru, Mother of Rhinos. And it is it's my own project, and it's my second film. So my first film was called Elevation Change, and it's about a young man who wanted to break the speed record for hiking the Pacific Crest Trail, which, for those who don't know, it's a hiking trail in the western United States that goes from Canada to Mexico through Washington, Oregon, and California. So it's nearly 3,000 miles long, and it's a story about his odyssey doing that. So, excuse me. So there are certain similarities between that film and the one I'm currently making about Anna. Both have to do with the natural world. Both are about, I like the way that you put this, Deb, ordinary people doing extraordinary things. That film was, happening in real time. The difference here is that Mama Faru is more of a historical biography based on Anna's writings and interviews with people who knew her and worked with her, and then her incredible archive of photos, diaries, letters, field notes, all that stuff. So it's just a wonderful story, and I'm sort of similar to you, Deb. I had been to Lewa before. I have a family connection to the Conservancy, and I had heard about Anna but I really started to take an interest in her when I read her New York Times obituary, which is just a great read. And, so I really admired her sense of adventure, her tenacity, and those were all things that I thought should be celebrated.
That's great. I did not know that. That's amazing to me that you saw
Yeah.
that obituary. I feel like, yeah, that's really great. I know that also, I don't think there's ever been a movie made of her. And I know there were several picture books made of her, made about her story, mostly the friendship with Samia. But I think other than her book, Rhino on the Brink of Extinction, this How to Raise a Rhino is the first full-length book anyone's written. And I'm so excited to see the movie. I can't even imagine what that'll be like. I was but you never went to Lewa Downs when she was alive. Have I got that right?
I had been there in 2007. I believe she was in South Africa at the time. So yes, I mean, I never had the opportunity to meet her, which is a real shame. But
I know.
I do.
Go ahead.
I do feel that, the stories that people share about her are, there's just such a sense of fun and also like outlandish, crazy stuff that she and her team went through. So I do feel like I've gotten to know her.
Yeah. There are some amazing. One of the ones I like the best is when Samia she was still growing. She didn't really have a sense of how big she was. And she was used to hiding behind Anna when something startled her. And then one time something startled her and she ended up running between Anna's legs and Anna riding her back and losing her teeth and her glasses. And I mean, the way Anna told the story, it was just sort of a Keystone Cop moment, but it had to have been pretty scary too. I think she was very brave. She seemed very brave. So you mentioned this enormous sort of treasure trove of letters and journals and photographs. And I know you're not even really through them all, but I wonder, is there anything that you came upon that you found particularly precious or surprising or something like that you might want to tell us about?
Oh my gosh, probably too many things to count. I like just thinking about things that have surprised me in the course of doing research. And maybe I was just naive, but it's been interesting for me to learn how little understood rhinos were prior to I guess the 1990s, and that through the work that Anna and Cathy, I'm sure you can speak to this, that Save the Rhino have done, it's totally kind of flipped the script on how they are perceived, their value, their personalities, their value just as a species, not as a commodity. And so, I think being like a millennial born in the 80s, there was a big emphasis on, protecting endangered species. And I was aware always that rhinos were endangered. And it was very interesting for me to learn what an uphill battle Anna had convincing people that rhinos were something precious and worth saving. And so that's I can see that in her letters and her she had a feisty spirit, and you can definitely see her frustration with people in a lot of those, but also her passion and her tenacity.
So I was going to ask you another question and now it's gone. Oh, well, I was going to ask you if your opinion of rhinos had changed since working on this, but you pretty much already addressed that, I think. Yeah, I think even Anna, I think when she started out, my impression was it wasn't like she thought they were so cute or cuddly or interesting or anything. And one of the stories that impacted me the most was her going with her dad to the Natural History Museum and seeing this stuffed dodo and thinking what a cool creature, and she couldn't wait to see one in the wild, and her father having to tell her that, you know, they'd been killed off, every single one, for no good reason. And I think she came back to that many times in her life, you know, whether she was rescuing these nasty civet cats or whether she, you know, people asked her why rhino. I think, you know, she really had a clear sense of the fact that animals shouldn't be saved just because they're cute or we like them or they're pretty or smart. All animals deserve to be protected and not slaughtered. Okay, so let's see. Is there anything else you want to talk about in terms of project? I'd love to know if you have any sense of a timeline, or is that unfair to ask?
Yeah. Sure. That's always the big question with documentaries. Yes, I think if all goes well, and I'm happy to say that things are going well, COVID really threw a wrench into making this project, but I think we're out of the woods now. So hopefully in about a year and a half, we're just starting to edit right now.
Oh, that's exciting. Well, I
Yeah,
really
thanks.
appreciate you joining us today. I'm so excited. I mean, I know we've corresponded, but I haven't really ever talked with you in real life. So I really appreciated your willingness to join us today. And I thank you for that.
My pleasure. This is exciting.
All right, I think we're going to go now to Matthew Mutinda, who is a veterinarian on Lewa Downs. Matthew, welcome. I will mute myself now.
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to come and discuss one of the most a book on one of the most iconic people who influenced what we do today. My name is Dr. Matthew Mutinda, and I'm the veterinarian at Lewa Wildlife, posted from Kenya Wildlife Service, and I've been there for the last. This is my 12th year, and I continue to take care of rhinos and wildlife in the greater northern Kenya region. So I'm gonna share with you a few slides and help us just in a brief discussion reflecting on what Anna meant to us. And personally, I never met Anna, but I enjoy working on the rhinos that Anna started up at Lewa, and contributed not only to Lewa, but on the greater northern Kenya landscape. And Lewa continues to give animals to other sanctuaries and play its catalytic role in creating other sanctuaries in northern Kenya. So I'm gonna show you one of my first slides, and it gives you an idea of what a committed person can start. That is us and the Lewa helicopter and Mike. And you might be interested to know that we have 132 black rhinos on Lewa and 128 white rhinos. And this is just one of the notching operations, because it's managed so well, they breed so well. So every 2-3 years, we have this notching operation. The helicopter is an advancement, because before it used to be done on foot, but now you have to do it from here. You also understand the incessant demand for rhino on, and from a security point of view, is the helicopter becomes quite a tool to manage security operations, not only during the day, but it flies regularly at night to do. Anna would be proud to know that we are taking good care of the enterprise she started, and is going on very well. Next. Yeah, sometimes rhinos are not out of the woods, but they are affected by different challenges. And that's me again. And you can see that's a rhino not in very good shape. We're not out of the woods in black rhino conservation. Although Kenya, we now have 900 plus black rhinos by Conis Mikaeli, and growing at an average of 5% per year. A place like Lewa, which has not had has had actually one poaching instead in the last 7 years, has tremendously done well as a stronghold of the black rhino population. But sometimes we all know now about climate change and things, and some of them affecting rhinos. And the veterinarian has to intervene and make a treatment, and luckily the animal gets to recover. Next, please. So we as people like to see ourselves as people working in the front line. A very rare and particular responsibility. The front line is where all the resources, Save the Rhino, and all organizations are trying to direct money to the front line, so that whether it's law enforcement, whether it's security, whether it's administration, we can take care of this. I'm happy to show you this must be a descendant of one of the rhinos that Anna was able to take care at Garesinkoi before it became into the bigger Lewa Wildlife Conservancy, and has become these donor of animals to the surrounding areas. Luckily, with good support, good management, and good connection between government and private sector, rhinos can receive the veterinary care in a prompt way. You can see from the air or on hands-on on the ground to be able to help the species to thrive. Next. Yeah, a day's work taking care of rhino, and myself and my colleagues and the Lewa and all the people at Lewa. Now there is this commitment. If for those of you who may not have visited Lewa, that the emblem and the signature of Lewa is a black rhino. Everything and all the efforts that we put together to start. And even during this meeting webinar, I'm happy to know some of the details about Anna. I personally might not have been able to know, but the zeal, the commitment, the foresight, the energy that goes into conserving black rhino. From a few animals in you can just imagine the journey of from a few animals in the 80s, and now you have a bustling population of 132 animals, and this is in a without counting the black rhinos, Lewas as given to Burana, to Meru, to Sarah, and you see this growth rate of conserving this species, doing well here, but catalyzing it well into the region. Next. Yeah, this is a picture by one of my colleagues here on Lewa, Martin Buzora, and it's actually surprising that to know how history repeats itself. This is one of the unraised rhinos. His name is Kitui, and now he's big. He's a big guy, and he used to be a cuddly young baby, and now he's a big guy at the exclusion zone on Lewa, near Lewa Safari Camp. And every time you can see this continuing role, these synergy of taking care of rhinos, because we believe hand-raised black rhinos have a role and a role to play in the species conservation. Actually, I have one of my students looking into the records of the rescues of black rhino and how they have raised and their contribution to the species, and have they had babies and how they have performed, and hope to be able to share it with the rhino world in due time. But these very iconic photo points into the efforts, and Anna might have been, and most likely, the very first person to have the belief and the energy to visualize that hand-raising rhinos as play. And that he has been rightly said, it's an exercise, and raising a rhino is a very demanding, time-consuming exercise. And their closest relatives being horses, and very little information being known about them. And you get these 2-3 day old baby, and you have to figure out the right milk formulation. They get sick. Not many people have treated them, and luckily, you are happy to see this animal get to the world into what we call rewilding. So there's no better tribute than to speak at an event of launch of Anna Merz's book, as the current generation on Lewa being the beneficiaries of pioneering work, and catalyze the same to our sister conservancies, and continue to play a role to give rhinos to create other conservancies within the region. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Matthew. Can you all hear me now? Okay. All right. Thanks. Thank you, Matthew. I love those photographs too. That was amazing. I really appreciate your sharing your experiences. Okay, so we are now going to hear from Cathy Dean, who has sort of a big picture view of rhino conservation efforts and how those efforts impact the rhino. Take it away, Cathy.
Thank you, Deb. I joined Save the Rhino as CEO back in 2001. And I knew I had to convert absolutely nothing about rhinos then. My career was, my degree was in history of art, and I worked in art bookshops and then fundraising for Tate Modern. But I knew about fundraising, and I knew about project management, budget management, and all those sorts of things you need to run a charity. But I accept I was very, very lucky to get the job at Save the Rhino. And here I still am 22 years later. And as my very early homework, I bought a copy of this book. You've already seen it once today, and that just tells you everything you need to know. It's your go-to book for learning about black rhinos. And I was absolutely captivated by the character of this gorgeous young black rhino, Samir. And it actually, reading the book, I ended up in buckets of tears. If you haven't read it, it's not a giveaway, but rhino conservation does involve heartache. The last 22 decades have involved a lot of heartache. As you all know, the poaching crisis has just been terrible for rhinos. But it also gives you those glimmers of hope. It gives you this portrait of an extraordinary woman who really, really toughed it out in quite a difficult environment, what would have been a very male environment back then. And the love that she has for the landscape, for the rhinos, for the people, and what one person managed to achieve is just extraordinary. So it's a deeply inspirational book. It gave me the confidence to think that I had chosen what was going to keep me happy for the rest of my life. So brilliant book, and if you haven't read it, I strongly urge you to do so. I wanted to talk about Anna's legacy, but just to catch up a little, almost just to recap where we are with the two species found in Africa. We have the white rhino first. It is near threatened. It is not as endangered as the black rhino, but the poaching crisis has really hit the white rhino hard. We've seen numbers go down from about 20,000 down to barely 16,000. They've been particularly badly hit in Kruger National Park and unfortunately now in Shishliwi-Umblozi. White rhinos, as you can tell from their flat lip, they are grazers. They go along essentially like a gigantic lawnmower. And I have to say, we're not supposed to have favorites, but I do. We would not be human if we didn't. And my favorite has always been the black rhino. It's got the pointed lip, it's a browser, it's small, curvy, powerful, it's got attitude, it's everything you want in a rhino. And of course, these were the rhinos that Anna worked with at Lewa. When Anna died, and like everyone else, I read that obituary. Do you know, I even met her once. Save the Rhino used to organise an annual event called Rhino May Day, and it was in London, and it would be for rhino charities and people who are interested in rhino conservation. And we'd get together for a day of talk, sometimes at London Zoo, sometimes at the Quaker Meeting House in Euston, wherever we could get a cheap room. And we'd have a day of lectures and talks. And one year, Anna came to that and she talked, and she was a compelling speaker, as you can imagine, because she had such great stories. And it was my habit back then that after the Rhino May Day, we would invite the speakers back for a buffet supper at my house. So of course Anna came with her friend Anne Stewart, and who I think is on the call today, and a rhino keeper who's become a great friend of Save the Rhino and of all of us, called Berry White, who's reared lots of black rhinos at Howlett's and Portland Zoo. And the three of them came to my house. I have to say they'd been to the pub first, so they were all extremely cheerful. And I was so massively intimidated by this sort of collection of extremely famous and knowledgeable people that I barely managed to say anything, and I missed my only real opportunity to have a heart-to-heart with Anna, which is something I will always regret. But anyway, she was in my house, and I, kept hearing things about her. And after she died, I was contacted by a chap called Jonathan Moss, who used to be CEO of Lewa. I'd met him years before at the Laikipia Wildlife Forum, and he said that Anna had left a legacy, and that it was being used to set up a trust called the Anna Merz Rhino Trust. And we talked through how it might operate and how it might award grants. And he went back to the board of trustees with some of my suggestions, and essentially they agreed that every year, Save the Rhino would put forward African rhino programs for funding, and that our great friends and partners in the States, the International Rhino Foundation, would put forward Asian rhino programs for funding. So every year we submit 5 or 6 proposals, and the board considers, they take advice from a great range of experts, and then they award grants. And so I've listed here Save the Rhino's 7 rhino conservation strategies. Anna wasn't interested in all of those. She knew that they were important, but with her fund, with the money that she had left, she wanted to go on the real basics, the stuff that needs funding year in, year out. So looking after your rhino population, all the protection that they need, particularly given the poaching crisis. Biological management, the day-to-day business of monitoring your rhinos, and you need to know what's happening to your populations, how the trends are doing. Are they being managed for maximum growth? And she also cared about capacity building, not research in that sense, but about looking after the rangers who are working in the field to make sure that they have fantastic conditions to live and work in. So those are the areas that we ask, that we put forward for funding. Now, I'm sorry, I have to show you one picture of the rhino poaching crisis. It rose to a peak in 2014-15. I have to say that that's the majority of rhinos have been poached in South Africa. Kenya had its worst year in 2013. when 59 animals were died. Now, 59 doesn't sound a lot in the context of sort of 1,200 or so animals being killed every year. But at that point, 59 rhinos was getting on for 3-4% of the national population. Matthew talked earlier about the growth rate at Lewa being 5% a year. If you get poaching mortalities and natural mortalities overtaking the birth rate, that means your overall population of rhinos is going to go into decline. And that is what has been happening in Kruger with the white rhinos. Now, Kenya, for a whole bunch of reasons, and I think it's a lot to do with the great dynamic that has grown up between the public sector, the Kenya Wildlife Service, the private sector, so conservancies like Lewa and the next door neighbours, Barana, and across to Old Jogi and Old Pejeta, up in the north to the Northern Rangelands Trust and the community rhino conservancies. I think a lot of the success of rhino conservation efforts in Kenya has been the strength of that partnership between the different sectors, to the point when actually Kenya has a most unusual problem. Matthew talked about the black rhino population currently being at about 900 animals. Its vision is to have 2,000 animals. But if you're going to have 2,000 black rhinos, you've got to have areas to put them in. So there is now a strategy, the Laikipia Rhino Range Expansion Strategy, to essentially replicate what Anna achieved at Lewa and to create contiguous rhino sanctuaries so that one day, perhaps, several years in the future, but one day we can drop those fences and have a large meta-population of maybe 1,000 animals in the Laikipia ecosystem. Wouldn't that be amazing? So I just wanted to show you a few examples of what we've done with Anna's legacy. So the first grants that we received were in 2014. And since then, I was just adding up this morning, we've received £734,000 worth of grants from the Anna Merz Rhino Trust. So that would be, depending on your exchange rates, about $9,950,000. So by the time we've done this year's grants, it'll be over $1 million. And then, of course, a similar amount has gone to the International Rhino Foundation in the States for the Asian rhinos. So here are some pictures just to show you how practical and how useful Anna's grants have been. So this is from Namibia. This is the work of Save the Rhino Trust, a small NGO that monitors and protects the black rhino population in the Kanani region of northeastern Kenya. It's a very, very remote, rocky and difficult landscape, very few roads. And so in the beginning of 2022, Save the Rhino Trust invested in mules to develop mule patrols to get into some of those hard to reach areas. And the $25,000 sent then was specifically allocated for the salary of the mule team manager, the construction of a water point with a solar pump, and to help build the field base at Achab. Teams in good spirits, they're covering a lot of miles, and there has been no poaching in the Kanani region for 30 months now, thanks to the patrols by Save the Rhino Trust and rhino rangers from the community conservancies. The next grant, another example, this was just over $26,500, again sent out last year. And this was for field ranger training in Shishlui and Flosi Park in South Africa, which has got a very large populations of black and white rhinos. But as I said earlier, it's been being hit very hard by poachers right now. So that money, $26,500, paid for combat man tracker training courses for teaching rangers how to track and then follow poachers safely. We trained 32 people for 8 days each. A tactical operations course, which again was very much about dealing with live situations. You hear over the radio that poachers come in, and this is how to engage with them safely. And that was a 12-day course for 10 rangers. And then we also ran 3 4-day first aid courses for 30 rangers in total, which is about providing emergency first aid care in the field. So these rangers would learn how to use a compass bearing when reporting gunshots and tracks, They would have an idea of how to follow up on those sounds. And then if anybody had been injured in an exchange of gunfire with poachers or had been injured by an animal, they would know how to do emergency first aid in the field while waiting for proper medical support to come in. As I said earlier, Anna cared a lot about the living and working conditions for the rangers. And this was a grant we sent in 2020 for new accommodation for rangers at Barana Conservancy, adjacent to Kenya. Barana had eight patrol teams who are named Zulu 1 through Zulu 8. And these are the monitors who are out in the field every day looking at black rhino population, at Barana black rhino population, and capturing all the data on them. And previously, the Zulu 1 team and a fence line monitoring team were sharing accommodation at the headquarters. But thanks to the grant of $20,000 from the Anna Merz Rhino Trust, we were able to build this wonderful new outpost. The 3 members of Zulu 1 and the 5 members of the fence line monitoring team, they each have their own bedroom. There are 4 loos, 4 showers. Each room has a bed, a light and water. There is electricity, thanks to solar power. And it's next to a canteen so that the rangers can watch TV in the evenings with their meals. It breaks up a long and quite repetitive job. So you can see from the beaming faces of the rangers how much this new accommodation means to them. Another example of a grant to Kenya, this paid for ranger training for the rangers at Old Jogi Conservancy back in 2019. And it was $19,500, and it covered the cost of a refresher course to enable the rangers to fine-tune their skills and refresh their memories on things previously taught. During the poaching crisis, it's such a hard job being a ranger. You have days and days of monotony, perhaps, in some eyes, looking to see the same animals every single day, patrolling the fence line, looking for any incursions. And yet, when poaching happens, there are these moments of extreme danger. So you have to keep all your wits about you, all your senses sharp, and just to be constantly alert. Ranger training is an important part of building team spirit, as well as actually teaching the skills and the practical know-how. And it's very, very much appreciated by the rangers. I have to say they get quite competitive in terms of the physical fitness aspects of it. The next grant was one of the early ones we made in 2016. This was to pay for rhino monitoring in the low veld region in Zimbabwe, where the Low Veld Rhino Trust monitors rhinos in Bubi Valley Conservancy, and in those days also in Salve Valley Conservancy. So again, as you can tell, these grants are immensely practical. Every year you have to find the salaries for the rhino monitors. You have to replace uniforms. You have to buy cameras and binoculars, because even with the best care in the world, they do get damaged and they need upgrading. And it's really, really crucial support. If you don't know how many rhinos you've got, you don't know if any are missing, and you don't know if they're breeding well. If they're not breeding well, what can you do about that? And then the last image of a grant, this was just $6,000 sent in August 2014. And it was to build the law enforcement efforts. It was about scene of the crime training, so that if there were any rhinos poached in North Luangwa, and touch wood, no rhinos have been poached in North Luangwa since they started being reintroduced in 2003. The rangers would be able to gather the scene of the crime evidence and send it all off. So the equipment, for example, patrol video cameras, GPSs, torches, binoculars, pliers, talcum powder, all the sorts of things you would need. So an incredible list of grants. But I would just want to kind of wind up by saying that Anna's legacy isn't just about the money she left, wonderful though that is. It's also that Anna lives on in the memories of so many people in Laikipia and Kenya and wider, as we've found out on this call. This was a photo I took in 2017 during a visit to Lewa. It was a guardhouse that had been built with funds from the Anna Merz Rhino Trust. On the left, you have one of the rangers who worked at that, who was based at that outpost, called David. He said whenever Anna used to go, she always wanted him to be her personal guide. He called her Mama. She was the world to him. And then on the right, you see Ian Lamayan, who is a very wonderful and talented rhino monitor, rhino scientist at Lewa, who developed a love of flying small planes, which sadly killed him. But Ian gave me the most amazing day. He's also, I don't think he knew Anna, but he knew how much she was woven into the fabric of Lewa and its rhinos. And I just need to leave you with a last image of this. Anna lives on. You have Anna, the cow, the rhino cow, and her lovely young calf, Anita. I love to think that there is a rhino named Anna still running around on Lewa. So that's it from me. Thank you very much, Deb, and look forward to any questions.
Thank you, Cathy. I got chills thinking about that too, having Anna there. Okay, so wow, this has just been so fun. I think I'm going to start, unless somebody has a different opinion, I'm going to start by going through the Q&A. Okay, so Marion has to log off. So we thank you so much. Any
Thanks,
questions?
Deb.
Yeah. Thank you. And
Great to see you all. Okay.
Yes, we'll look for the movie or film when it comes out. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Congratulations, Deb. Bye, everyone.
Okay, so I'll just go through some of these. So the first question is, there's been a lot of talk of letters, photos, etc. Is there relevant video footage of Anna or made by Anna in the, oh shoot, we missed our chance, archival material? I don't know. I obviously don't know the answer to that. Marion just signed off. In the past, when I haven't really gotten any specifics from her about video footage. I didn't get the impression from anything I read that she carried a video camera around us. Anybody else? Patty, do you know if she ever took video? No. Are you muted maybe?
Mute. Okay. I do know they did a National Geographic's that she was a participant in. So there is video of that. No, she didn't carry a video camera that I ever knew of. I don't think she had that equipment. I'm sure there's people that visited her that likely have video footage. But she did not tend to do video.
Yesterday, also a very short video just about rhino poaching, but what I thought people would be interested in is it has a short section of Anna speaking to the camera, so we can hear her and hear her philosophy about conservation. So I'm going to put that link here in this answer. I'm hoping that everyone can see it, and if not, just give me a wave and I'll figure out a different way to do it. Okay, so the next question is, Save the Rhino in the relocation of the 2,000 captive bred white rhinos, ? In South Africa, or do you have an update on that project or thoughts on that project? Cathy, that sounds like a question for you.
Thanks, Deb. So this is the story. This is the issue with John Hume, the world's largest private rhino breeder, has a population of about 2,000 southern white rhinos. Is a former property real estate multi-millionaire, I gather. He got into buying rhinos, would have been about 2009-10. I believe that sort of one of his motivations for doing so was that he believed that CITES would change the ruling on international trade in rhino horn. He basically bet on trade in rhino horn being legalized. He rather famously took the South African government to court a number of times when they attempted to ban a domestic trade in rhino horn in South Africa. And so for several years, so John Hume's setup is amazing. I visited in, must have been 2018, 2019. It was called Buffalo Dream Ranch. It's now called Platinum Rhino. It has very state-of-the-art security. You know, it has the ops room. You have to say, Matthew, even Lewa's ops room, the jock, would look compared to John's. It was quite awesome. The number of screens, the alarms, everything that would go off if anything came through his fence. He had 2 helicopters. You know, he very, very expensive to look after rhino populations at the moment. And for several years, he's been saying that he was going to go bust, that he couldn't afford it anymore. But this year, it seems that that is a reality. And there was it was very well publicized, an attempt to auction off his rhinos back in April. But in the end, there were no bidders. I think the starting price was something like $10 million. There were no bids through the auction process, and therefore they had to regroup and have another think. There are a couple of parties that I know of who are in private talks with him, and of course it now involves the South African government as well about what might happen to that rhino population. I have to say it's a really difficult situation. I'll say up front, Save the Rhino is not involved. We don't have the kind of money for that. Even if we wanted to prioritize a population of southern white rhinos that are essentially managed as a monoculture. If you've seen pictures of platinum rhino, they are in very large paddocks. It's managed breeding. There are questions about the conservation value of those 2,000 white rhinos, and I might suggest that you visit our website. We have the African Rhino Specialist Group, of which I'm a member, put together a very thoughtful position paper on the conservation value of those animals that they hoped might, you know, inform potential buyers. What are the pros? What are the cons? What are the options for what you do with this? Our view as an organization is that rhinos have value when they are in healthy, functioning ecosystems, and those are mixed with other species in their natural environment, in range states. And 2,000 white rhinos in a bunch of large fields on their own, to our mind, is not a functioning ecosystem. Clearly, when you think about all the poaching in Kruger, if Kruger or other parks could be safe enough, there could be value in moving those animals and essentially rewilding them and putting them into Kruger. But it will be a very expensive and risky process. Frankly, there are no easy options at the moment. So I think on that note, I will recommend that you read the African Rhino Specialist Group paper. It's very thoughtful, well considered. It had a lot of input from a lot of people.
Thank you, Cathy. Thank you. Yeah, that was an interesting idea he had. I followed that to some degree. Okay, let's see. I think the next question is from Carrie Speck. Deb, what was your favorite part of writing the book? I think that really, well, I'm going to give 2 answers. One, even as I was getting ready to talk today, I sort of stopped to appreciate just how many people I've met because of this and how excited everyone was to, you know, to send me off to other people. So it was this amazing, almost a scavenger hunt of so many people who were excited to talk to me about Anna. And I do think that was thrilling. I never meant to go on safari. That was not like the people I went on safari with. They were all, you know, this was a bucket list event for them. For me, it was just never on my radar. But when I got the opportunity, I have to say it was pretty life-changing to be at Lewa Downs, to imagine Anna there, to meet people who knew her. I interviewed David, the ranger that you pointed out, and we had a Swahili interpreter. I felt so excited to be there. And I did get teased a little bit because I love birds, and there were so many birds I'd never seen before, and everyone coming for, you know, the big 5 rhino, elephant type things were kind of making fun of me. But anyway, so the safari was great. And I just want to give another shout out to my critique group, because the other thing I love is playing with words. And this was a multiple year effort. And it was my critique group that helped me organize and manage all the information I gathered into something that somebody else might want to read. And I think there's probably everybody here who's had that experience where you've gotten so deep into something, you want to tell everybody everything, and then they run away because they're bored or overwhelmed. So my critique group, some of whom I think are on this call, also made writing the book very fun. So thank you for that question. Let's see, Vasily, do we have any other? Oh, Cathy referred to us in the chat, as is a short video with Anna. I don't know if anybody wants to link to buy the book, or to donate to Save the Rhino, or to donate to, oh, hi, Naomi. Okay, Naomi checked in here. Naomi Campbell is Anna's goddaughter. I'm gonna read this out loud. I think it's just a comment, but I'm Anna Merz's goddaughter, Naomi Campbell, not the supermodel. She must get that all the time. Can I just say to Deb and everyone linked to this launch today, I just want to say, I know from the bottom of my heart, Anna is with us all on this call, and thanking everyone for continuing to continue her work in saving rhinos and all the other animals in Africa. Oh, that's a lovely comment. I have to say, wearing this necklace with the rhino on it and knowing it was once around Anna's neck just thrills me. And that's just an example of Naomi's generosity. One of my daughters was with me and she got a necklace too. So anyway, I just thought, because she only just met us and she gave us that and shared it with us, and it was amazing. So anyway, oh wait, here's, okay. I think that's all the questions, unless somebody wants to raise their hand and say something or ask something, with their actual voice. Oh, okay. The floor recognizes Cathy Dean.
Thank you. Matthew, I wanted to ask you about your most hair-raising moment working with black rhinos, because they have such character. And what I think one of the things I love about working to save them is that they don't have a clue the lengths that we go to save them. So I wondered, have you got a couple of experiences that really stick in your mind?
Thank you very much, Cathy Dean and Deb and everyone. Yeah, if you're in the front line and you touch around 400, 500 black rhinos, you can not miss an hair-raising experience. But the attraction, the adrenaline never stops. So one of my most hair-raising experiences is a black rhino put me out of action for a whole year. And I am very lucky practicing every day, doing crazy things, helicopter, stalking elephants, lions, everything. But one day I actually with Michael Dye at Corona, and I had hired a helicopter. Then I decided that the rhino was way too far injured. So if we put a helicopter, we'll continue to injure it more. So then I decide, why don't I go and stock it on food? Because I'm pretty done that. I've done 200 about that way. So one additional one wouldn't hurt. And I stock up the rhino about some 30 meters. I able to give it a good dart on the neck. But it chases me and Michael up into trees. I ended up breaking my cruciate ligament and putting me out of action for almost a year and stuff. And I still walk with a slight limp. And yes, black rhinos are full of a character. You have to love how aggressive they are, how dominant they are. And once you have that attraction with them, you develop a liking, and you want to save them, you want to do something for them. But yes, they are very tough, prehistoric, wonderful looking animals. Thank you.
Okay, a couple more questions, I think. Oh, let's see, from Patty Grant, just to say thank you for everything you're doing to save our precious rhinos. I grew up at Lake Magadi in the Rift Valley, and there were many rhinos. Now there are none. I just wanted to say that was one of the things that sort of felt so heartbreaking. Like when Anna, you know, had the idea to even try and start this, you know, she was living in sort of the outskirts of Nairobi, and I think she and Carl would occasionally bump into a black rhino, you know, on their evening walk. And then by the time the sanctuary was up, I mean, the number of rhinos were so hard. They looked, you know, it was hard. It was really hard to find those last rhinos. And plenty of times they would go to a place where rhinos had been spotted and find, you know, several of them poached. So, you know, you think about the heartbreaking things that they had to go through, you know, you just wonder how Anna and others could keep going, but they were amazing. Anna was amazing. Okay, let's see. From Anna Shea, congratulations on what sounds like a wonderful book and a huge communal effort. To anyone, is there any detail or part of the book that you wish people would ask you about more often? I don't, let's see. Patty might have read the book. I'm not sure if anybody else has.
Yes, I read it.
Okay. I don't know. Was there anything that jumped out at you about the book? I'm trying to think.
I love that you added my favorite story of when Anna was testing Samia's sense of smell. The story of that. I don't know if I should give it away or let people read it, but that was my favorite story that she told about Samia and testing the sense of smell, and she just realized how totally intelligent rhinos actually were. And I remember once Anna telling me that she had worked with chimps way back when in rehab and all that, and she said that her rhinos were even more intelligent than the chimpanzee. So that speaks wonders of how intelligent the rhinos were. And just they would learn to open up the Jeep door, because sometimes she'd go around with feed in the back of the vehicle, so it would learn to undo the door. It learned to undo the electric fence, right where she would undo it every day. Just how intelligent they were, and how she learned the different snorts and different ways that the rhino communicated with her and with other animals.
I often wonder, and maybe Matthew can weigh in on this, I often wonder if it had been a different rhino that she had to foster, if the experience would have been different. But boy, Samia was so smart, and that prehensile lip, that's the part I love, imagining her watching Anna, you know, disarm the electric gate and then figure out how to do it herself when Anna's back was turned. I mean, the way Anna told the stories, I think Samia in particular was, I don't know, she really bridged that rhino human world in a way that I wonder if another rhino would have or not. I mean, when you hear Matthew's stories, and of course there were plenty of stories of Anna getting chased up into a tree, you know, it makes you appreciate Samia sort of all the more. So I don't know, Matthew, have you ever observed, I think it must be different. It must be very different, but have you ever observed a rhino sort of fully out in the wild who did any of the kinds of things that Samia was known to do?
Deb, thank you for such a question. It's hard to believe, and having seen those pictures and seen these pictures and knowing my experience of hand-raised rhinos, I will tell you it is absolutely true. Rhinos are very fascinating, and even as Cathy tells you, as ferocious as they are, they're very, very trusting. I've gone through the experience of seeing like 4, 5, 6 black rhinos being hand-raised. And even when I had an experience about a year ago, you hand raise a rhino, and his name is Elvis. Those people come to Lewa might know Elvis. And Elvis grows up from like day 3, because there was a mother rhino which was blind but very good breeder. And he goes out during his teenage, was very naughty. He had those children who don't want to leave home. It's you're 18 years, you need to leave mommy's house and go and find your place. Not Elvis. Elvis would Lewa had to have all these barricades because he doesn't know he's big. He wants to rub himself against you. I have numerous videos and pictures, Deb, if that will be helpful to you. Last year, after about 10, 12 years of staying away from his keeper, Elvis, just near the Lewa clinic, meets Kamara, the person who unraised him. And Kamara is able to touch him, and he goes down like a dog. It was totally unbelievable to me. I'll say, Kamara, are you not sure? A very interesting connection between a human. And yes, just before he left home for the bush, because now he's a famous daddy on Lewa. That's why I say there's value in hand raising rhinos. He also once went to Ian's bedroom and to see Ian tells that story himself more hilariously. And it's absolutely seeing. I didn't see Anna with us. I only saw the pictures, but having done rhinos myself and seeing the keepers who have done, it is absolutely true. They're very smart. Elvis, I have videos and will share with you of him opening tap of water. It's hard to believe, and he would take. The only thing he didn't know how to close when he finished having his drink. But opening, he would very well. Going through gates, getting onto doors, all sorts of things. So they are pretty smart guys, and it's an honor to be able to unraise and interact with one.
Amazing. Okay, we are out of time. I just want to read Naomi's last note. She remembers very clearly in 1980 as an 18-year-old goddaughter visiting Anna in Nairobi. And one evening she was at the dining table with Anna and her friends at Craig's. And she says, she honestly says that's the beginning of the rhino journey. So I've heard, so maybe the rhino journey began in Nairobi and or Lewa Downs. There are many origin myths about Anna Merz and her efforts. I just want to thank everybody so much for joining me. I can't tell you how much I appreciate the support. Writing and researching can be a lonely business, and don't even get me started on how to get published. But I just feel like today made it all worthwhile. So thank you all for your time. Thank you, Save the Rhino. Cathy, it was lovely to meet you. And I think I think we're signing off. And Vasily has a note. Yes. Oh, yes. You're welcome. Okay. So there's a link in the chat now about how to buy my book, and you're encouraged to join other Save the Rhino events down the road. You can sign up for their notifications, and I encourage anyone who's even at all tempted to figure out a way to get to Lewa Downs and see for yourself these amazing creatures that Matthew and his whole huge team take care of. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.